Good morning, friends, and welcome to this final week of our Home Organization Challenge. This is Anitra with Simply Living Smart, and it's been such a joy to have you along for the last 5 weeks as we're organizing our places and spaces. And it's so exciting to hear how you're doing. And I love getting emails about your progress and everything that you're doing to transform your lives into these organized, beautiful places. And for those of you who are new to Simply Living Smart, welcome. So glad to have you here. And just as a refresher, we started a whole home organization challenge on July 4th. That's when it kicked off. And so there will be 5 weeks total where we go from room to room to room and help you organize your places and spaces and give you some ideas that you can implement in your home. And today is the final week of that organization extravaganza. And it happens to be that today we're going to be talking about the garage and the car because these are very high traffic places. And I want to make sure that those are organized too. It just makes sense, right? So we're going to dive in here. Remember, if you have any comments or questions, there are a lot of things I'm not going to cover in the garage organization because everybody kind of has their own. The garage is kind of really personal to people. And so I want to make sure that we focus on those things that are really common to everyone. And of course, my perspective is coming from a wife and a mother, not, a sportsman or a fisherman or something like that, a hunter. And so I will give, maybe just some high level things, but take what I give. And if it works for you, great. If not, just let it go. But maybe it will help you in your organizing journey. So not only today are we going to talk about garage organization and car organization, I'm also going to give you a little bit of information about emergency car kits. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned. And I will be posting a video right after this segment on how to create an emergency car kit. So that might be of interest to you as well. So let's dive in. We're going to start with the garage. And the garage can be such a catch-all, can it? Everything just kind of ends up in the garage. Well, some of my most exciting and fun organization projects with clients have been sifting through their garage. And because I find that there's so much that we can get rid of that people have put there and forgotten, that it really gets me excited to just clear out those spaces and make them really workable places. In fact, I love to have all of my, garage walls. I love them painted. When I moved into my home, I made sure that it was all painted inside. I just wanted to start from scratch. So I would say to you, as you're organizing your garage, because you're going to be taking everything out anyway, pick a day on a weekend where you have 3 or 4 hours, because that's really how much at least it's going to take. So I would say get everything out of the garage, everything, so that you know exactly what you're going to work with. And if you remember, it's always a good idea to sort in piles. So as you take things out of the garage, have these different piles. The first one is going to be items that stay in the garage. That should be an obvious. Then you'll have a pile that's for items that belong in the house out of the garage. So you're still going to keep them, they just don't belong here. Another pile is going to be trash, of course, and that's an easy one. And another one will be donations. And you may find, as I have before, that I've had so many things that I could donate that I ended up having a yard sale, right? Or letting my neighbor use it for their yard sale. And so I just feel like as we morph and as we age and as things change in our lives, there are certain things that we're going to use. There's certain things we just don't need anymore. So be wise and manage those things. Remember, everything that we do is to manage our life more simply. So we're taking everything out of the garage, item by item. We're finding the pile it goes into, and then we have these very separate piles, right? Hopefully you'll have a huge trash pile and it'll feel so good to de-junk. Now, I would consider painting your garage. If you can do that, have somebody come in, get it all painted and fresh, it'll feel so good. I like to sweep and also hose down the garage so it's just super clean, there's no dust, and it really just feels like an extension of your home when your garage is clean. So I just love that feeling. And then we're going to talk about solutions and how to put everything back in a way that serves you best. So one of the things I always like to ask clients is how often do you use the things that are going back? How accessible do they need to be to maybe the garage door or the home? And then that helps you kind of determine where they will be stored and how. Okay, so that's kind of our launching pad. So again, I feel like if you can divide your rooms, just like we did the bedrooms, into specific zones, you're going to find that it's a really organized way to, to have your garage. So here's a recommendation, and I've always had this in my home, and I know that it works for other clients as well, is I establish a his and hers side of the garage. So on my side, I've had kitchen cabinets put in so that I have cabinets on the top, I have cabinets on the bottom, and then I have a nice little workbench in the middle that's all cleared off. Okay, so I can put all of my things that I like to have. I like to have simple tools like hammers and sheetrock screws and all of my little painting supplies. When I go to touch up paint in the house, I want to make sure that in the bottom cabinet, I have all of my extra paint with a label that says which room does that go to. So that's all on my side. Things where it's gardening and anything that I would use inside the home. And it's so great. My measuring tape is there, my scissors are there, the stuff for my bird feeders. So I feel like all of my stuff is just organized and I have a workspace. And I think that's really important to have just a workspace or a work table in the garage. Of course, on his side of the garage, he has all of his tools, his power tools, his extension cords, all of those things, and they are organized as well. And I like to have baskets of things. Let's say you have sprinkler parts. All of those should be in a basket. You have some gardening tools, or he has all of the things that utility things that he needs to have. Now, there are some great wall organizers for things like shovels and rakes and brooms, those things that need to be maintained and to stay dry. So you can look at all kinds of options. My favorite is just kind of a long bar, has little clips, and you just clip in all of those things, the rake, the broom, everything, and it's off the floor so you can sweep easily. They're easy to find, they don't rust, and that's a great solution. Now, I also like to have extra buckets with handles for around the yard cleanup. So if I'm going out on a Saturday morning and I'm just pulling a few weeds or doing a little thing, I have a 5-gallon bucket with all of my gardening tools inside. My clippers, my gloves, everything's just there so that I can take my bucket, go around, do my work, and then dump it out and then have my stuff there again. And that's really, really helpful. So consider, again, what do you do on a regular basis and how can you access that easily? One of the smartest ways, I think, to store things in the garage is to install floating shelves. Now, floating shelves are great because they're up and away. And again, if you have, I would really maximize your garage space. So if you can put those floating shelves as high as you can on the wall, that's really going to be to your advantage. They're, you don't knock your head, they're not falling off, and they're nice and, away from the dusty floor. So I like to store my seasonal things there. For example, my Christmas boxes or my Halloween boxes or anything that's seasonal, I like to put in big bins, label them, and have them on floating shelves. That way it's just really easy to grab. I can see exactly what's there, and I'm not trying to, climb over boxes and stuff that, could go bad. So I just find good long-term storage solutions. All right. Remember, there's a lot of wall space in the garage. Sometimes we just think about the floor, but there's so much wall space. Imagine this. Imagine taking a really good heavy-duty screw, and it's just kind of a U-screw, and you screw it into the sheetrock. Those are great for hanging kind of those rope baskets. Do you know what I'm talking about? They're kind of look like big laundry tubs, and then they have a rope, and you can just hang it on that. Imagine things in there like swimming equipment for kids, or gardening equipment, or outdoor boots, things like that, extension cords. Those can just be really nice. You can make 3 on a wall or 6 on a wall, and you just compartmentalize the things in your garage and you hang them in those. That way they're kind of angled so you can see what's inside. I mean, imagine having all these little kids and they're going out in their boots and they're dirty and they're wet. A great place to just throw them in there. They'll dry. They won't be all over the garage, and things are easy to find. So I think that might be a good idea for you. I apologize about the glare. It looks like my window is so glary and I don't know how to move. So if it's scary to you, I feel like I'm on a Halloween show or something, but excuse that. Okay, so let's talk about all the little tiny things. So we have things like screws and nails. And I mean, if you have a husband who does any sort of woodworking or working around the house, I have a collection of them. So what I do is I take embroidery boxes, kind of what you would use for embroidery floss, and then I I itemize all of those things. All of these screws are in one, all of those screws are in another, all the nails are in another, all the, everything has its little place so it doesn't get lost. And again, I'm not a fan of keeping the boxes they come in because they take up way too much space and I would have to stack them. Instead of stacking, I like to have them in these nice organizer boxes. It just works well for me. Okay, let's talk about emergency supplies. And here I'm talking about a backup water supply, 5-gallon water jugs, or 72-hour kits, or emergency fuel, or emergency cooking supplies. Those are all great to have in a garage as well. And of course, all together so you can find those things. So if you are storing your 55-gallon drums in your garage, the best idea is to really first, before you fill them, put them on 2x4s. Lay 2 2x4s under those 55-gallon drums. That way the air can circulate around and you won't get mildew inside those containers. It's a really, really good idea. The concrete just absorbs moisture, so we don't want that, okay? So first do that. Have it away from your wall enough that there's some gap and some space for air to circulate. Over my 55-gallon drums, I have floating shelves, and those floating shelves hold 5-gallon water containers. And I can't stress enough, if you haven't done water storage before, make sure that you store your water in dark containers. So the dark blue, those are the right ones to get. If you store them in clear containers, you'll get mildew and moss and mold, and it's just not good for you. So dark blue is the best, but make them accessible. So I have about 10 or 12 of those 5-gallon water jugs that I can just grab. If my water gets turned off, if I want to go out into nature, camping, whatever, I just grab one of those. Super simple to use. I have the little spigots that go with them, and I have instant water. I don't have to worry about pumping out of my drum. So really the drum is kind of the biggest backup plan, but then I want to have a smaller supply that I can bring into the home if I need to. Hope that makes sense. Okay, designate a place near the garage door as you come in from the garage door to your home for shoes. I think a lot of people have issues there. Everybody kind of throws their shoes, they're muddy, they're dirty, and what does that do? That brings it right into the home. And we don't want to have messy, dusty, gross stuff in the house. So what I have found is I have installed just outdoor carpet right outside my garage door in the garage. And that kind of catches all the dirt and all the stuff that I can vacuum up later. So they take them off there. It absorbs the wet too, which is super nice. I don't have trails of wet coming through my home. And then they're allowed maybe 1 or 2 pair of shoes that they just take off. If we have a lot of shoes, let's say you have campers or hikers or things like that where they have a lot of outdoor type shoes, I would designate one shoebox caddy, like I would say maybe a storage container that's big enough to hold 5 or 6 pair of shoes. And then I label them with that family member's name and they're easily stacked right outside that door. That way, if they need their outdoor shoes that are not just their normal everyday shoes, they know exactly where to get them. They're not piled on top of each other, and we're not tripping over shoes. That's one of my biggest pet peeves. So come up with a really smart shoe solution. Or I have another solution where when they come into the house, I just have a little shoe rack that people can put their shoes on there. So whatever works for you, just keep them up and away and just clean. It'll make you feel so much better. All right. Let's talk about bikes and trikes and kids gear. Now again, there are such great solutions for storing bikes upright against the wall or hanging them on the wall. But I want you to also consider, some of you have space where you could put a table, let's say just maybe a long banquet table against your wall. And on that table, you can have certain containers for certain things that are super easy to get to. Let's say stackable drawers or bins. Under that table is a perfect spot for kids' bikes and trikes and little toys, just tucked away because they have access to it and they can learn how to put things away, and they're not in the middle of the garage or the middle of the yard, but you're still making use of the top of the table, which is really great, okay? Now, let me introduce you to something that I used to do when my children were littler and I had more errands and things to run for them, and this works so well. It's called my In-N-Out station. So I want you to imagine this. You've all seen kind of those bins that are stackable and they have big, deep drawers. So I'm thinking maybe 14 inches by 18 inches, and the drawers just pull out of kind of the bank that you have, okay? So I would stack 6 of those drawers, one on top of another. It's perfect right by the outside of the garage. When you come in from the garage to your home, there's kind of that area right there. And these are the ways that I would label them. This is the way I take care of all of my outgoing errands. So stick with me for a minute and see if you can understand what I'm talking about. One drawer is designated for dry cleaning. If I need to go drop off my dry cleaning, it goes in that drawer. One drawer is for donations. If I need to take something to Goodwill, it goes in that drawer. Another one would be store returns. How often do we take our store returns and we leave them in our bedroom, or we leave them in the garage and we can't find them later? Put them in the donation or in the store returns drawer, and then I'll tell you what to do with it. The next drawer would be borrowed items, things that you take and things that you've borrowed that you need to return. Have them in a drawer. The next thing might be things that need repairing around the house. Another one may be your recycle bags for the grocery store. And another one could be a car maintenance kit. So even though you take your car to the car wash a couple times a week, I mean, I like to have my own maintenance kit. So I like to have things like air fresheners or shine for my black car, whatever it is that you like, window cleaner. But can you see how if you have those all in one space, what happens when you have to go and drop off your dry cleaning or drop off your donations? It is all there. And every time you leave the home, you can check those drawers and say, is there anything while I'm going out that I can manage? And chances are most of those can be managed in one trip. Doesn't that make it so much easier? So you may throw them in and every month or so check it out, and they might not be full for a month or two, but when they're full, just manage it. But I find that having places designated for such things as dry cleaning, donations, store returns, borrowed items, things that need repairing, shopping bags, and cart maintenance kits just makes sense, right? They're not floating somewhere else or on the floor. So this is my absolute favorite part of organizing a garage is the in and out station. I feel like it has been the most, it's been the greatest tool for so many of my clients, and it's worked so well. And I hope it works well for you too. You could even take the whole drawer if you want, put it in your car, and you've got everything you need, right? So now we found a place for most things in our garage. I'm sure there are a lot of things that I'm probably missing. And again, if you have a question about garage organization, what do you store there that's not working, and maybe I have a solution I can offer, I'm happy to do that. So just write it in the chat. So let's now move into the car, because the car really can be somewhere where you can feel calm, you can feel like it's kind of your getaway, and it can be super, super organized. So I like to divide the car into 3 zones: the command zone, the kids zone if you have kids, and the trunk zone or the emergency zone. And if we can organize each of these, you're going to feel like, again, you have more control, you know where things are, you feel like you're going to have a backup plan if there's an emergency. So let's dive in. Let's start with the command zone. The command zone is what I call the front of the car, so the driver and the passenger seat. There's a lot that can be stored there, either in the glove compartment or in your little bank in the middle, or there's some side nice little things you can store. Have you guys ever seen those little containers? They're really thin and they're kind of plastic, and they fit between your seat and kind of that pop-up lid in the middle. Those are amazing, not only for storage, because I like to store things, my phone or chargers or things in there, but it's great because it catches all of the stuff that falls down into your car. So if that's all you use it for, is just a catch-all, it's just a sleeve, you don't even see it, but you know it's there. Everything that kind of just falls, you're not having to like wrap your hand around under the seat and find it. I've had my phone slip off my lap several times, and it just goes right into that little caddy, and there it is. So I love that. You can look them up on Amazon. They're super inexpensive. So I have one for each side of those seats. Of course, in the middle bank, it's a really great place to put all of your little stuff, but of course, have it organized again, okay? And I'm not going to go into the details of those because I'm going to talk about another basket or organizing tool I'm going to use in there. And then you can decide whether you want that in your bank and glove compartment, or whether you want that, all of those little backup things in a basket itself that's just out and visible, okay? So I find that when I had smaller kids, again, and I had lots of errands to run, and we were actually going places because this pandemic wasn't going on, that I was just much more active in my car. Now I maybe drive the car once or twice a week, and that's it. So I'm home a lot more. But when you're on the go, it's so nice to have little things at your fingertips. And so I'm going to talk about an on-the-go basket. And again, You can determine whether that sits on your floor, or you can determine whether that sits in the back seat or on your front seat if you don't have any children or passengers. But I find that having this, it's kind of like my weekend warrior basket. It corrals everything that I might need, and it makes me feel super prepared when I'm in the car. So I'm going to go back to that big bank of, to manage kind of drawers that we talked about. This could be something, if I don't want to take the whole drawer, I just take what's inside and I can put it in that basket. But also in that basket are going to be things like this: a place for my water bottle, a place for maybe some snacks, my sunglasses. I like to have a manila folder in there. So if I have paperwork that needs to be taken from one place to another, or if I've gone to the doctor and I have, paperwork that I need to file later, I like to have that in a manila folder so it just stays clean and unbunched, okay? And so I have a manila folder. I have a small bag with Sharpies and sticky notes and index cards. Oftentimes I'll drop things off at people's homes and they're not home, so I don't want to just leave it there. So I take a sticky note and I write, I was here, whatever my message is. But it's so nice to have it there. Or if I think of something while I'm driving and I'm at a stop sign, I can quickly, jot it down and put it on my manila folder. So you can see how just having those things accessible and not having to, file through your little, glove compartment for a pen or something, it's nice to have all of that there. I also like to have, like I mentioned, an extra car charger for my phone, some emergency cash, and maybe even my favorite book that I'm reading, so that if I have to wait at a doctor's office or I have to wait in line somewhere, that I have some good reading material. So think ahead and have things that you think that you might need. I mean, let's say you go out for an errand and you're gone for an hour. Well, what if something happened? What if there was a car accident, or what if there was a detour, or you don't know what would happen, but maybe you were stranded for 4 or 5 hours. Would you have something to eat? Would you have water to drink? Would you have access to a charger? So these are things that we need to think about because it could happen. Or you could be a help to someone else. And I found that in my life, that maybe it's not me that needs it. When we get to the emergency car kit, I'll tell you a little story. But maybe there's something that you can help someone else with, and it just makes you feel good because you thought about it earlier. Now, of course, because of the pandemic, we're all carrying extra gloves and extra masks and that sanitizer and everything. So that's a nice thing to have in that on-the-go basket as well. And I always like to have a backup of, 5-Hour Energy, because I need some caffeine sometimes, and also some Advil or a painkiller. So if I have a headache, and sometimes I get them and I just am not close enough to home. So think of the things that you might need that you want to always have on hand. Lotion would be another one. Sunscreen. Think of anything that can go in that to-go basket. Now, I'm just thinking for myself because I don't have children anymore that I drive around. But if you have children, what are some of the things that they need? So this is going to kind of segue us right into the kids zone. And of course, the kids zone is that middle section where they sit. And there's so many great organizing solutions for kids. Have you ever seen, they kind of look like shoe organizers. They're kind of like those canvas organizers. Well, they also make them to go on the back of the driver's seat or the passenger seat so that they hang down, and all of those little, Velcro pockets can be opened by the kids. And they have things in there like markers and coloring books and games and headphones and anything they need to keep them entertained in the car. But it's all corralled in that nice little organizer that hangs right behind the driver's seat. That way it's not on the floor, it's not on the seat, and we can teach our children to be organized. When they leave the car, everything has its place, right? I also like to have a place for, just snacks, drinks, things that I think my kids will need. Of course, you'll want to make sure that those drinks are not in plastic. That's just horrible for hot weather, and that will leach. So think of anything that your kids might need to keep them entertained, tissues, diapers, whatever it is that you need on the go. All right, that's pretty simple. I think that all of us agree that you don't want to fill your car with toys and things like that, because those are just things that you're going to have to manage more. So be selective. Maybe they can pick one toy, but I really find that in the car, I guess when my kids were little, they weren't playing games because that wasn't a popular thing. But even if you can have, coloring books with markers or whatever, so that if you have to go somewhere and take them, it's a quick entertaining factor, right? They don't have to be bored and whining. They have something to do. So anyway, a backup plan, that's my suggestion. Let's talk finally about the trunk of the car. And again, I'm going to be posting a video today on how to make your own emergency car kit. Why is this important? We have no idea what might happen. We're on a road in the middle of the winter, or we get a flat tire, or something goes wrong. It is always a good idea to have an emergency car kit. So let me offer some suggestions on what that might include. There's a list of 15 things. So the number one thing would be a shower curtain. And the reason why a shower curtain and not a blanket, it's much more, it's not as dense and it's not as big as a blanket, although an emergency blanket would be nice to have, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But a shower curtain is nice because imagine that you're in heels or you're doing something and you have a flat tire and you've pulled off side of the road and somebody is nice enough to change your tire. Well, I think nice enough is putting down a shower liner so they don't have to get all grungy and dirty, right? A shower curtain. So just somewhere to lay so that if somebody's working on your car, it's just a gracious thing to offer. Or if, there's so many reasons to need a shower curtain. It could be for shelter, it could be for whatever, but that's a good thing to have, and that's my number one. Number two, a couple of extra towels in case my vanity is when I go to the car wash and the dryers don't fully dry my car, then I like to dry it off with towels. But towels can also be for really messy cleanup. Somebody threw up in your car, or somebody needs padding behind their head, or there's all kinds of reasons to have towels in your car. Wet wipes or paper towels to clean up spills, of course, that's a no-brainer. Water and backup food. Now remember the backup food, don't let it be something that can go rancid. It could be maybe even hard candy if somebody needs a sugar boost. I know my son's diabetic, so I have a kind of a little kit that has things just for him. But if you have, again, water not stored in plastic, if you can have that in metal or something that's just more healthy or more, you know what I'm saying, I think do that. But definitely have some water in your car. Plastic garbage bags, of course, are always a great idea. Again, you don't know if there's going to be an accident, you have to throw something away, or, it's just a good thing to have. Or it's just another thing, if there's a lot of, trash in your car, take a minute and take it out and get rid of it. Heavy work gloves. I think this is a number two thing to have. Heavy work gloves, because you just never know who's going to be working on your car if they're gracious enough to do it, and if they have their own. One story about that was that I was at the grocery store one night, like 8 o'clock at night, super unusual for me. It was snowing so hard, but I needed to have something for the next day. And I realized when I got out, I had a flat tire. I looked around, there were maybe 3 or 4 people shopping, and I was devastated. I didn't know what to do. I could have called AAA, but it would take half an hour. So I opened my trunk, kind of rifling through, and got the jack out and everything, and some really nice guy stopped by and he said, "You're having trouble, let me help you." He not only changed my tire, but he gave me a brand new pair of work gloves. And he said, "This is just my thing. Whenever there's a flat tire and I change it, I want to make sure that someone has a pair of work gloves so that they can pass it on." So I've made it a point now to always have a pair of extra gloves to give to someone if they have a flat tire. I'm not going to change their tire for them, no, but I will have something to give to them. And it just made me feel so good, but it made me feel like I need to be better prepared. All right, a first aid kit. This is, of course, something that we always have to have. If it's as basic as Band-Aids and Neosporin or a wrap or something, we have to have a first aid kit. Flashlight and batteries is always a good idea to have. I really love the LED flashlights because you can leave them in your car. They absorb the sunlight. You never have to remember to change out the batteries. So that's a great thing for dark nights. A change of shoes and clothes in case you have to abandon your car, and heaven forbid you ever have to do that. But if you're leaving, the office and you're in heels or whatever, and you have to travel to find help, we never know what these scenarios will be, but wouldn't it be nice to have a spare pair of good shoes and maybe a jacket to have in case you need to leave. An emergency car battery charger, I think that's always a good idea. They've got really compact little ones that you can do if you don't want to use the jumper cables. So that's another idea. Extra cash for sure would be a good idea to have in your emergency car kit. A sharp knife and a collapsible shovel. So the collapsible shovel, of course, is great. We've used it before if we have to get out of a snowbank or something like that. So again, these are small things that you can tuck away. A tow rope and jumper cables would be a good idea. The little things like toilet paper, lip balm, sunscreen, pain relievers, disposable gloves, are all a great idea. And these things don't have to take a lot of space. In fact, a lot of you in your cars, like I do, I can lift the back kind of where the spare tire is, and there's quite a bit of room underneath there to store my items. A blanket, that's where I put the blanket because I just feel, if people are in shock and they need a blanket, or it's the middle of the winter, or again, never know, but a blanket's a great idea to have in your car kit. Paper and writing tools. We kind of talked about this in the command zone in the front, but I think leaving notes on cars if there's, a dangerous situation or you've noticed something or whatever you do, it's nice to have writing tools. I remember my son got in an accident once and I had to, I don't know, write something down because of the accident or for the insurance or something, and I was so glad to have something there. And so I wouldn't have had, and I was feeling flustered, and it was just one of those things. So I think just the basic things really help. Again, a book or two if you're stranded. Again, this could be a book for you. It could be a book to keep kids entertained. I don't know if you've ever had a breakdown and you've had kids in the car. They can get pretty upset and antsy. Have a backup plan for them. All right. So these things, as you'll see in the video that I'm going to share with you on how to create one of these kits, can either be put maybe just in a duffel bag, or again, just find the nooks and crannies in the back of your trunk so that you can make the most of that space. Under seats is also a good idea. There's a lot of space under the seats that we don't use, so be super smart about how you organize that. So friends, this really kind of just wraps up the garage and the car organization, and hence the huge organization challenge that I gave you beginning in July. So I hope, and I can see because I'm getting a lot of emails and comments about the work that you're doing, and I'm so excited for you. And thank you for sharing, because I really feel like this is making a difference. And I know that summertime's a great time to organize. If you haven't had a chance to see these episodes, again, there are 5 in total, and we will go through every room in your home and organize everything, every space that you can imagine. And if you need help on certain things, reach out and ask. This whole community can help you. And if I have best case scenarios that I can share with you, I'm happy to do that as well. But my intention is to give you the tools so that you can organize your spaces and places so that you can feel more calm and have joy, feel less cluttered, and be more productive in your days. That's always, always the biggest goal. And I know that you're going to feel better when you do that. And remember, manage it simply and lighten up and let go, and everything else will just kind of fall into place. I'm so excited about the weeks that are coming up. I will tell you that next week we are diving back into food. In fact, because this is the prime dehydrating season right now, I'm going to give a quick episode on dehydrating 101 in your home. And you don't even have to own a home dehydrator. You can use it in your oven. So I hope that you'll look forward to that. And that episode will be maybe 30 minutes, so it'll be pretty quick in and out. After that week, I'm taking a 2-week break, and then we're going to come back and dive into more nutrition and superfoods. So I'm super, super excited to have you along with me. Again, I appreciate your support. If there are any topics you'd like me to cover or help you with, I'm happy to do that. I love to learn, and I love to share what I'm learning with others, and glad to have you along. I hope you have a super productive Saturday. I know that I've got a gazillion boxes to tick, and I will see you again next week. Bye-bye, friends.